The massive doors at the back of the America's Got Talent stage swung open slowly, revealing a slim Filipino teenager standing nervously behind them. He clutched a vintage silver microphone prop, something he insisted on bringing because it reminded him of home, of karaoke nights with his family, and of the Elvis songs his father used to play on Sunday mornings. The backstage crew gave him gentle nods of encouragement as he stepped forward, but his feet felt heavy, weighted by the pressure of the biggest moment of his life. The boy took a deep breath. "Kaya ko to, I can do this," he whispered to himself. As he stepped onto the stage, the bright AGT spotlight hit him like a wave of heat. The audience, a mixed sea of faces, sparkled under the stadium lights. Some people leaned forward out of curiosity, others whispered quietly, and a few simply waited with mild disinterest. After all, hundreds of performers came through this stage every season. What made this kid any different? With each step, the boy's heart pounded louder, not just from nerves, but from the weight of everything he represented. His family back home, his culture, his hopes for a better future. Deep down, he carried a silent promise to make every Filipino watching proud. He reached center stage. He looked up. Simon Cowell, dressed in his usual crisp shirt, sat with his arms crossed. His expression was unreadable, not unkind, but certainly doubtful. Next to him, Heidi, Sophia, and Howie offered polite smiles. The boy's stomach tightened. How could anyone not be intimidated? These were global icons judging him with the eyes of millions. "Hello," Howie said warmly. "Welcome to America's Got Talent. What's your name?" The boy swallowed hard. I'm Elias. I'm from the Philippines." The crowd reacted instantly with cheers, claps, and supportive shouts. Filipinos around the world were known for loving music, karaoke, ballads, high notes, harmonies, and the AGT crowd seemed genuinely excited to hear what he could do. "And how old are you, Elias?" Heidi asked with a smile. 16, he replied, trying his best to steady his voice. Simon raised an eyebrow. 16. "And what will you be performing today?" Elias gripped his microphone tighter. I'm going to sing a song by Elvis Presley." A low ripple of laughter and murmurs moved through the audience. Some people smiled kindly, but others exchanged doubtful looks. Elvis impersonations had been done so many times before on talent shows, often poorly. Many assumed this would be the same. Even Simon leaned back slightly as if preparing for a predictable performance. He crossed his legs, clearly expecting something ordinary. But Elias didn't flinch. He knew what people were thinking. He knew he didn't look like Elvis, didn't sound like the stereotypical impersonator, didn't have the costume, the slick hair, or the swagger. He wasn't here to imitate. He was here to honor a legend in his own way. Still, the doubt in the room was thick enough to feel. Elias closed his eyes, took one long final breath, and gave the audio team a small nod. The music began. A soft guitar intro filled the massive theater, the unmistakable first notes of an Elvis classic. The crowd shifted, gently recognizing the tune. But Elias was still frozen in place, gathering courage, waiting for the exact moment he felt ready. The moment arrived, he opened his eyes, and sang. The first note that left his lips was so unexpectedly smooth, so warm and soulful, that it sliced clean through every whisper in the auditorium. The mood shifted instantly. What had been doubt turned into stunned silence. Elias's voice carried the nostalgic depth of Elvis, but with something ethereal layered on top. A softness, a sincerity you could feel in your chest. It wasn't mimicry, it was emotion shaped by a Filipino heart, molded by years of singing barefoot in living rooms and singing for relatives who cheered him on, even when he cracked notes. The audience leaned forward almost in unison. Even Simon blinked, once, twice, as if recalibrating his expectations. His arms slowly uncrossed, a small flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes. Elias continued singing, the melody flowing out of him like water. His vibrato was controlled, his pitch precise, but what truly captivated everyone was the feeling in his voice. He didn't just sing the lyrics, he lived them. Each word seemed to tell a story about sacrifices his family endured, struggles they pushed through, and dreams passed down from parents to children. Though they didn't know his personal history yet, the judges could feel that this young singer carried something meaningful within him. An elderly woman in the second row pressed a hand to her mouth, stunned by the unexpected beauty of his tone. A couple in the back exchanged surprised whispers. Sophia leaned forward, eyes glowing. Even Howie nodded slowly, impressed. But Simon was transfixed. The camera zoomed in on him as he tilted his head, studying Elias like he was trying to figure out where this voice had been hiding all his life. His lips parted slightly, just enough to show he was genuinely blown away. Elias felt the energy shift and let himself relax just a bit. He stepped into the performance with confidence, allowing the music to lift him. For the first time since walking on stage, he smiled, a small, vulnerable smile that made the audience cheer softly. And as his voice grew stronger, filling the entire theater with a golden, powerful resonance, something magical happened. The boy who walked on stage trembling was now commanding the room. By the time he reached the pre-chorus, everyone knew they were witnessing something special, something rare, something unforgettable. The laughter was gone, the doubts were gone, all that remained was awe. And Simon Cowell, the man notoriously hard to impress, was now sitting forward in his chair, eyes wide, mesmerized, unable to believe what he was hearing. As the music swelled into the next section, the AGT stage transformed. The lights dimmed around the edges, leaving a warm golden spotlight focused directly on Elias. It wrapped around him like sunlight through a window, giving his silhouette a halo-like glow. He shifted his weight, lifted his chin, and allowed himself to truly enter the world of the song. This was no longer just an audition. It was a moment, and everyone in the room could feel it. Elias stepped forward, gripping his microphone with newfound steadiness. His hands no longer shook. The doubt he carried into the audition, the fear, the nerves, the uncertainty, all seemed to dissolve as the music flowed through him. His voice deepened with confidence, carrying a soulful richness that echoed across the theater. He hit a long note, warm, clean, effortless, and the audience reacted immediately. Small gasps rippled through the room, like people suddenly remembered to breathe. The camera panned across the crowd, a young woman covering her heart, a father swaying lightly as if remembering something from his youth, a little girl staring wide-eyed as if seeing magic for the first time. Elias wasn't just singing a song, he was awakening memories, memories of old records spinning, memories of road trips with classic music playing, memories of parents humming Elvis tunes while cooking, memories of home. His voice had that rare quality, the ability to touch something deep inside people. He took a step back, then forward again, not performing in a flashy way, but in a heartfelt, almost reverent style. He wasn't imitating Elvis's swagger. He wasn't trying to move like him. Instead, Elias expressed every lyric with sincerity, as if telling his own story through someone else's melody. The judges noticed. Heidi Klum leaned forward with her hand on her chest. Sofia Vergara whispered to Howie, "He's amazing. So emotional." Howie Mandel nodded with quiet awe, but it was Simon's reaction that stood out the most. He wasn't smiling, he wasn't nodding, he wasn't doing any of the usual reactions. Instead, Simon sat completely still, eyes fixed on Elias with an intensity that only appeared when he sensed true greatness. It was the look of someone witnessing an artist reveal their soul. Elias reached the most emotional part of the song, a gentle rise in melody that required not just vocal skill, but deep emotional connection. He closed his eyes and let the power of his voice carry the moment. The trembling vulnerability of his tone drew people in, while its strength kept them locked in place. Just then, the stage lighting shifted again. Tiny golden rays flickered behind him like distant stars. It wasn't confetti, not yet, but an early shimmer that hinted at something magical hovering in the air. The audience grew louder as they felt the buildup. Whispers turned into cheers. Cheers turned into spontaneous applause mid-song, one of the rarest signs that a performance had truly captured hearts. A mother in the front row wiped her eyes and whispered to her daughter, "Listen, he's singing with his whole soul." Elias felt the audience's energy swelling like a wave. It lifted him, boosted him, fueled him. He reached for the next note, a difficult one that required precision, strength, and emotional depth, and he T at dead center. The sound resonated through the theater, vibrating in the chest of every person watching. It wasn't just strong. It was pure, raw, sincere, undeniably powerful. The judges sat straighter. The crowd rose to their feet in sections, like a ripple spreading outward. Elias didn't even realize what was happening. He was lost in the song, lost in the memory of how he practiced it on nights when he felt lonely, lost in the flashbacks of singing with his father, lost in the dream of one day standing exactly where he stood now. He wasn't alone anymore. The entire theater was singing with him in their hearts. Then came that part, the emotional drop that Elvis fans knew well. Elias softened his voice, letting it melt into the melody like honey. It was tender, intimate, and impossibly beautiful. The quietness wasn't weakness. It was storytelling. It was vulnerability. It was the moment that broke people open. Someone in the balcony whispered, "Oh my God." Someone else shouted, "Yes." The rest clapped softly, not wanting to interrupt the fragile beauty of the moment. He opened his eyes again, and this time the confidence in them wasn't shy or nervous. It was glowing. Elias stepped toward the audience, gently raising the microphone as if offering his voice directly to every person in the room. And they accepted it. The final build of the song hit. The stage lights brightened to a radiant gold. Elias's voice soared higher, stronger, fuller. He sang like someone who had waited his whole life for this one shot. Then he went for the climactic note. The theater held its breath. He hit it, perfectly. Not just perfectly, powerfully, emotionally, unforgettably. Cheers exploded throughout the room, louder, wilder, uncontrolled. People jumped to their feet. The applause was so intense it echoed like thunder. But Simon didn't clap yet. He simply stared, stunned, absorbing every second. When Elias finally reached the last note, a soft, sweet, lingering finish, the room fell completely silent, not because they weren't impressed, but because they were overwhelmed. Then, boom! A wave of applause erupted, engulfing the theater. The boy who walked on stage trembling had delivered one of the most soulful, heart-stealing performances AGT had ever seen. And Simon Cowell's glowing, astonished expression said everything the world needed to know. He had just witnessed something extraordinary. The final note of Elias's song hung in the air like a delicate ribbon of sound, drifting through the theater long after his lips had closed. For a split second, a breath, a heartbeat, the room was frozen. Not a whisper, not a shuffle, not even the faint hum of the cameras moving, just silence, the kind of silence that only follows something extraordinary. Elias stood there, chest rising and falling, eyes wide with disbelief. He couldn't tell if he had done well, or if the silence meant something had gone terribly wrong. His fingers trembled around the microphone, not with fear, but with the overwhelming realization that he had given everything he had. Every memory, every dream, every ounce of heart. He had poured it into that performance. Then, it happened. A sound. One single clap from somewhere in the audience. Then another, then a third. And suddenly the entire auditorium erupted into a roaring ocean of applause. People jumped to their feet so quickly that some of the chairs slammed backward like dominoes. The noise was thunderous, the cheers blending into a wave that washed over the stage and drowned out everything else. Elias's eyes filled with tears. He covered his mouth with one hand, overwhelmed. He had never seen so many people cheering for him. A boy from a small town in the Philippines who once sang in front of a cracked kitchen mirror. Now he was here, standing on one of the biggest stages in the world, and the world was standing for him. But the applause wasn't the moment everyone would remember. It was Simon Cowell, a man known for being impossible to impress, did something he rarely did. He stood up, slowly, deliberately, almost in disbelief at himself. Simon pushed his chair back and rose to his feet. His face carried no smile, no joke, no sharp critique. It was something different, something raw. He looked stunned. Truly stunned. The camera zoomed in on him just as he lifted one hand and pointed directly at Elias. "You," Simon said, voice loud enough to cut through the applause. "That was absolutely incredible," the audience screamed. Even louder. Elias's knees nearly buckled. He blinked rapidly, unable to process what he was hearing. Simon wasn't finished. "I'll be honest with you," he continued. "When you walked on stage, I didn't know what to expect. But what you just did..." He paused, shaking his head slowly, almost in disbelief. "That wasn't just good. That was world-class," Elias gasped, a tear rolling down his cheek. Sophia clasped her hands together and said, "You gave us goosebumps. Every single note. You didn't just sing. You touched every person in this room." Heidi added, "You have a gift that is beyond your years. Your voice feels like it carries the soul of a legend, but also something new, something uniquely yours." Howie nodded enthusiastically. I wasn't expecting that. The control, the emotion, the honesty. You sang from a place that comes once in a generation. While the judges spoke, the crowd continued cheering, chanting, "Golden buzzer, golden buzzer, golden buzzer." The chant grew louder, spreading across the theater like wildfire. Elias shook his head, overwhelmed. "Oh my God," he whispered, voice cracking. "Maraming salamat po." His voice trembled, switching instinctively into Filipino. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Simon raised his hand slightly to quiet the audience. "Elias," he said, his voice softening, "something that didn't happen often. I hope you understand what just happened here. You didn't just sing an Elvis song, you honored him. You made it yours, and you made everyone here feel something." The audience applauded again, louder this time. "And that," Simon continued, "is what this show is all about." Elias felt tears streaming freely now. He wasn't embarrassed, he wasn't hiding. This was everything he had dreamed of. Not just applause, not just praise, but the feeling that his voice mattered, that what he shared meant something. Simon stepped closer to the judge's desk, glancing down at the golden buzzer button glowing softly under his hand. The entire audience looked at him. Elias looked at him. The moment thickened with suspense. Sophia covered her mouth. Heidi leaned forward with wide eyes. Howie mouthed, "Do it!" The crowd began chanting again, louder than before, "Golden buzzer! Golden buzzer!" Simon stared at Elias for a long moment, then let out a small laugh of disbelief, a soft, emotional release. "You know what?" he said. He placed his palm over the button. Elias gasped. The audience screamed, and then, nothing. Simon pulled his hand back. "But not yet," he said with a grin. "I want to hear what the others say first." The audience laughed, relieved but still buzzing with energy. Elias let out a shaky laugh too, wiping his tears. Even Simon chuckled at his own dramatic tease. Heidi went first. "It's a yes." Sophia, 1,000,000% yes. Howie, absolutely yes. Then it was Simon's turn. He leaned forward, eyes softening again, as if there was ever any doubt. "It's a yes from me." Confet. Tea didn't fall. Not yet. But the happiness in the room felt just as bright. Elias bowed deeply, overwhelmed with gratitude, emotion, and disbelief. As he walked off stage, shaking, smiling, crying, the judges continued watching him with warmth and admiration. Backstage, crew members clapped him on the back. A producer hugged him. Another crew member handed him tissues. Elias looked at the camera, still trembling. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for believing in me." And as he walked down the dim backstage hallway, with the sound of cheering still echoing behind him, one thing was clear. This Filipino teen didn't just audition, he made history, and Simon Cowell would never forget the moment he first heard him sing.